So the green dot appears every time What's up guys, and welcome back to the Tech Spot. In this video we are going to be taking a look at iOS 14's battery life, security, and also the performance. So to start with, for me on my iPhone 11 Pro Max, I do get about 5 hours of screen on time, if not longer. So from my experience on the iPhone 11, the battery life is really good. It's very comparable to iOS 13, and this is only the beta of iOS 14, so that's saying something. I expected my battery life to be a lot worse, but it's really about the same for me. Now, based on what the iOS community had to say, people who had the iPhone 10 and newer said that they did notice better battery life, if not the same battery life, with the iOS 14 beta. But it's not all glitz and glamour. For older devices like the iPhone 6s and the iPhone SE, I've heard bad things. Some people even say that on the iPhone 6s, they only get less than an hour of screen on time, which is terrible. They say that on the iPhone 6s and the iPhone SE, that battery life is somewhat worse on iOS 14 beta for some reason. I think it's because on the iPhone 6s and iPhone SE, since they are older phones, the battery is much more depleted. The battery health is down usually because people have had these phones for longer. And with this new iOS 14 software update, it does introduce some new features like being able to have picture-in-picture, that little video mini player, and also widgets and all this stuff, which does require more processing power that I feel like these older devices are not able to handle as well. And because of that, they do tend to heat up. iOS 14 apps tend to crash more, and because of this, you will probably get worse battery life currently on iOS 14 with these older devices. On older devices, people have been stating that their battery life has been a lot worse, but on newer devices, people say that it's the same as iOS 13, and if not, they even get better battery life on newer devices. For iPhone 10 and iPhone 11, iPhone 11 Pro Max, those devices, okay? But yeah, most people are reporting that they do get better battery life on iOS 14 beta. So it could go either way. You could either get really good battery life on iOS 14 beta or have terrible battery life. You'll probably have terrible battery life if you are on an older device, and if you're on a newer device, you will probably get better battery life, if not the same. But again, for me on the iPhone 11 Pro Max, the battery life has been pretty good. So usually at the end of the day, I usually have like 30% left over. The iPhone 11 Pro Max has amazing battery life to start with, but then with iOS 14 beta now, I usually have like 40%, sometimes I have 30% at the end of the day, so really good battery life on iOS 14 for newer devices again. Alright, so check this out. If I head over to settings and then I head over to battery, you guys can see my battery health is at 97% on my iPhone 11 Pro Max. So yeah, still pretty good as to be expected, as this is a pretty new phone. And if I head back over, you guys can see in the last 24 hours, I did get 5 hours and 43 minutes of screen on time, which is incredible. I do use my iPhone a lot and still lasts me the entire day and some more. I still have a lot of battery life left over, which is super cool. But again, if you go back to battery health and is kind of depleted over here in the maximum capacity, if you're like at 85% around there or lower, then you might not get the best battery life, and especially on older devices. Now, the security and privacy is a area where Apple really put a lot of time and effort and thinking into. It's really crazy and really quite interesting what they've done over here. So first off, this is really cool. I'm sure a lot of people are gonna love this. There is now a recording indicator that shows up on the status bar on your iPhone in iOS 14. So it's like this little green dot, and there's also this little orange dot that appears. So the green dot appears every time your phone is using your device's camera, either front facing camera or back facing camera, either one. So every time an app is using your camera, it will just have a green dot in your status bar, which is really cool. And on top of that, it will show an orange dot if an app is using your microphone. Okay, so this is really a breakthrough. Okay, I can't believe we didn't have this before. It's really nice to be able to see when your device is actually using your camera or your microphone, because I know that's a huge security and privacy concern. I'm pretty sure with Instagram and Facebook, this is always going to be on, okay?
Oh, and it'll also show you which app recently used your microphone or camera when you swipe down a control center, which is really cool.
Now, another cool feature in iOS 14 is that it does have a password data breach thing. Yeah, I'm really good at explaining. But anyways, what your iPhone or iPad or iPod Touch will now do on iOS 14 is that if it detects that you have a password that shows up in a data breach, then it will actually suggest that you change that password because, again, it was in a data breach, so your password can be compromised very easily. So it notifies you so that you can change your password and stay safe. Now, that is a really cool feature too. When I first saw this, I had a password and it's like, okay, your password is part of a data breach. You should probably change it because otherwise it might get compromised. So I thought that was a really cool feature. Now, inside Safari on iOS 14, there is also a privacy tracking report.
So check this out. If I open up Safari, I can actually go ahead and tap on the double A's on the top left. Now there's an option for tracking report. Tap right there and you guys will be right here. Now you guys can see Safari provides trackers from the following across websites. So it shows you all the trackers that the website is using. And you guys can see known trackers prevented 23. It also prevents them, which is cool. Website that contacted trackers. But anyways, what doubleclick.net was blocked across 7 different websites. And you can see everything, which is really cool. All the different websites that you have visited. So if I head over here, I can see all the trackers on this website as well. Go back, I could tap right here. Okay, yep, that's a bug that they need to fix in iOS 14. I can't click there, but it does show all that information, which is nice.
Now, another thing that Apple pushed and talked about in their keynote was the sign-in with Apple and how it's so secure, and also Apple Pay. Now, sign-in with Apple is not new. This was introduced in iOS 13, but this is going to be even bigger now because even more apps and websites are going to put in sign-in with Apple. And sign-in with Apple is just so secure. It doesn't store any of your information on Apple servers. So yeah, it would be nice if soon every place had an option to sign with Apple because it just make life so much easier as well as more secure. Now, the App Store in iOS 14, if you scroll down on an app, it basically shows the privacy information. It shows you whether the app will use your location, tracking, what it will do, if it will use your front-facing camera, your contact info, your browsing history, your financial info, your purchases, your location. It'll let you know all the information about the app before you even download it, which is nice. And another cool thing about iOS 14 is that when you want to use a location for an app, you don't have to show your exact location, but rather you can use your approximate location. This is handy for like weather apps. It doesn't necessarily need to know your exact location, like exactly where you are, but just needs to know your city and you should be good. So this is another very handy security feature. And yeah, so all in all, you guys can see how iOS 14 is really taking huge leaps and steps to make it even more secure and private. My favorite feature in terms of security is probably the green and orange dots that appear in the status bar. That is really cool. Now let's talk about performance. For the most part, for me personally, as long with many others, iOS 14 Beta 1 has been really stable. I even went on Twitter and stated that, well, for me, iOS 14 is almost as stable as iOS 13, which is saying something because iOS 14 is only in its first beta. So again, iOS 14, as we heard in the past with rumors, was going to focus a lot on being just more stable with less bugs because iOS 13, okay, that thing was a mess, okay? I hated iOS 13 aside from the dark mode. That's the only thing I liked about it. But yeah, iOS 14 is just miles better already, okay? Just in the beta versions. Imagine once it's finally released, it's gonna be so stable.
Alright guys, so I forgot to record the outro, but hopefully you guys enjoyed this video on iOS 14. Let me know down below in the comments what your experience with iOS 14 is. Do you like iOS 14? Are you going to be updating to iOS 14 or sticking to a lower version for a jailbreak? Of course, we are going to be seeing a jailbreak for iOS 14 as well, but that is going to take more time as it's a newer software. But anyways guys, hope you enjoyed this video. This is TechSpot. Stay tuned for much more content. Be sure to subscribe, hit that like button as that does help me out tremendously. This is TechSpot, and I'm out. Peace.